Welcome to the Sportscast, February 25th, 2019. If you haven't yet, please subscribe in all of our channels, YouTube, Periscope, iTunes, and please like us in all our social media platforms. And if you're on iTunes, please leave a rating and a review. It will help us out tremendously. And, of course, visit us on thesportscast.net for all the information. Today, happy Monday, we have Justin Riley, who has a special guest, and he'll introduce him for us. But, hey, Justin, welcome back to the Sportscast.
Hey, man, glad to be here. Always a great opportunity to sit and talk about sports, even though it's not college football season, and I can't talk as much about Alabama football. But, hey, I'm glad to be here.
So, of course, Justin can tell us a little bit more, but we've actually been engaging with Steeler Nation because there is such thing as Steeler Nation. But Justin, can you introduce to us to our special guest of the Sportscast?
Absolutely. Like Santiago's mentioned here as of late on our Twitter account, I've been engaging with a lot of folks, but not as many folks as the Steeler Nation has been getting a lot of love here recently from that group of people, probably one of the most passionate fan bases in the NFL ever. And just through that, I've come to know Joe, and we got him here today to talk a little bit about some things that are surrounding the Steelers. And how's it going, Joe?
Doing great. You're right. Steelers Nation is large and passionate, and right now very angry.
I can imagine why. I definitely love engaging with Steeler Nation because I'm an Alabama football fan, and we're probably one of the largest, most passionate fan bases there are, so I can identify with you guys pretty well.
Yeah, it's both teams have a great tradition of winning, and I would imagine when things aren't going perfectly with Alabama, people are pretty upset, and right now things aren't great with the Steelers, and people are very upset.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to move into the first topic, and that's Le'Veon Bell. The past 3 seasons, he's sat out each time and caused quite a fuss amongst the organization as well as with the fan base. Can you give me a little bit of your take on how you feel about what he's done?
Well, I think he's just a guy that wanted to make as much money as he can while he can. Athletes don't have a long shelf life, and he just wanted to maximize his earnings. So he didn't like the Steelers' offers. I don't think the Steelers' offers were that terrible. Considering that they wanted to make him, I think that the biggest offer was like 5 years, $70 million or something like that, and the nearest other running back was making like 8 or 9 or 10 million or something like that. So they made him a pretty good offer, but he thought that wasn't good enough, and then he just fell victim to the stupid CBA and the franchise tag rules. But when he decided to not play the first part of the 2018 season and then the entire season, people were shocked. I'm sure the Steelers were shocked. The fans were shocked. I think everybody was shocked that he would just forfeit $14.5 million guaranteed. But the way he was looking at it, it's for his long-term benefit. He's trying to get that big payday, and hopefully he gets it pretty soon.
Now, obviously, like Bell had a few opportunities to get back with the Steelers. People thought after the whole trade that he may come back after that, and even Ben Roethlisberger was hinting that he would come back next season. Was that something that you thought he would come back, or you've always thought I don't think he'll come back at all this season?
You could make a good one of those ESPN 30 for 30s on the behind the scenes what happened with this entire deal. I think originally Le'Veon Bell planned to come back. He planned to do it because this was a almost a repeat of last year or 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they tried to come to an agreement. They couldn't. And he played that 1 year under the franchise tag, and I think he made like $12 million guaranteed or something like that. So everybody thought he was going to do the same thing, and I think he planned on doing the same thing. But then something happened, and that something was the Todd Gurley contract extension. When he saw how much Todd Gurley was getting, especially how much he was getting guaranteed, I think that changed everything. And I think that that he said, "Wow, if I play this right, I'm going to get a huge contract." So I think that's why he sat out initially. I also think he told his teammates he was coming back, because I think he originally planned to come back. That's why when he didn't show up before the first game, his teammates were very angry, because I think they thought he lied to them. And then what happened in the middle of the season was they thought, and I think everybody thought, that he had to show up by November 13th to accrue an entire season. And somebody looked into it and said, that's not the case. He doesn't have to show up at all. So he may have figured to show up before week 1, then didn't. Then he may have planned on coming before November 13th, and that didn't happen either. So I think this whole story took a lot of twists and turns along the way, and that wasn't the original plan to sit out the entire year, but that's just how it ended up.
Absolutely. It's given the appearance of like a reality TV show of sorts.
Oh, yeah.
You know, even if you're not a Steelers fan, if you're just a fan of football, it makes you angry. Again, money is the driving force in any decision making. I mean, you see it in the NFL, you definitely are seeing it in the NBA. And, you know, you don't like when players sit out to begin with. You know, it disrupts the development of the offense, chemistry, et cetera, and what's going on with the team. But you can almost kind of shrug off the first instance, but it happened now 3 times, and to me, that's unacceptable.
Well, that's the other big thing about this. He showed that what we all know, but we don't want to think about, that to them it's just a business. When a player comes on your team, whether it's Alabama or a professional football team or whatever, or a baseball team or whatever, you think that they are that it's their lifelong dream to play for your team. They're so happy to be on your team, and they would just do whatever they can for the good fans of that team. And what Le'Veon Bell just showed is it's a business. They're just out to make money. And I mean, hey, you can't blame them. Like I said, they have a short shelf life. And, you know, they're going to try to make as much money as they can, and that's just how it is.
Now, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think, do you as a fan want Bell back, or do you have that trust with James Conner?
That's I think there's a 0% chance of him coming back. I think that those bridges were burned with the Steelers, and then burned again a few times. So I think there's no chance of him coming back. That is one thing about this, is though James Conner showed last year that not quite as good. Nobody's going to say that he's better than Le'Veon Bell, but the numbers he put up while he was healthy were very good, and some of the numbers he put up were actually better than Le'Veon Bell's. So, you know, that's part of the thing was Le'Veon Bell just a product of the Steelers' offensive line and the Steelers' offense? We'll see. I guess we'll see for the next team he shows up in. But James Conner did great. The problem is he got hurt, and I think that will always, unfortunately, be an issue with James Conner. Is he's always going to? I think there's always going to be an injury risk. What I would love is if the Steelers get another pretty good back. However, draft, free agency, trade, whatever, to complement James Conner and have that 1-2 punch, kind of like the Saints have with Kamara and Mark Ingram.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to piggyback, you know, I'm a huge fan of James Conner. I saw flashes of greatness his rookie season when he was able to come in, and then going into this season, he might not, you know, be as great an athlete like you said as Le'Veon, but no one can question his drive, his work ethic. his tenacity. His personality fits the Steelers. But like you said, who's going to be his complement? So I'm wondering, is it going to be Jalen Samuels, who showed us a little bit, when Connor was hurt? Maybe somebody from the draft, free agency, Mark Ingram's still there. You got Tevin Coleman, et cetera, et cetera. What direction would you go if you had to make that decision?
If it were me, I think what the Steelers think is they think they have that compliment in Jalen Samuels. And maybe they do, but the thing about him is he's just so young and raw. I mean, he barely ran even in college. I think in college he was more like an H-back, like a pass-catching running back / tight end kind of thing. So he didn't even run that much in college. He did run a little bit this past season, and he did well, but I think he just has a lot to learn. So, I mean, there's a risk getting somebody that young and inexperienced. So, yeah, I hope they get somebody, and not just like a retread. I've seen Frank Gore out there. I think Frank Gore is like 97 years old. I don't want to see him. Like, just somebody else that's pretty good. I'm not sure who all is out there, but just somebody fairly decent, not just a bottom of the barrel guy.
Would you take Trent Richardson, who's performing well for the Alliance at Birmingham Iron?
Wow, that would be really interesting. Yeah. I would take him, but I mean, I'm assuming he would be on a pretty low deal, but man, that's a great story. I remember what a bust he was when he was, first time in the NFL. But now I see him, it's like, wow, where'd this guy come from? Like, it's great that he's been able to revive his career. So I would love if the Steelers took a chance on somebody like that. That would be awesome.
What do you think, Justin?
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think one of the biggest reasons that Trent didn't do as well is that, which a lot of athletes fall into this same category, they are surrounding themselves with people who are just draining them dry and just taking everything from them. And, that's constantly weighing on his mind. That was constantly hindering him. And, when he did well his first season at Cleveland. And then 2 weeks into his next season, they're like, okay, well, we appreciate you. We're going to send you to Indianapolis. So that kind of caught him off guard. And he just kind of started losing his love for the game and then just floated off into obscurity. But now he seems to have just redirected himself. He's gotten rid of the baggage, which is mainly the moochers that hung around him quite frequently. He's playing for a different reason. He's playing for his kids. He has his passion and he has his tenacity, and he looks similar to the same player that he was at Alabama. It doesn't appear like he's lost a step. Matter of fact, he's still the beast that he always has been, and what we saw a little bit in college, what he's been able to do from a yards after contact standpoint for the Iron is nothing short of a thing of beauty. But it would be interesting to see him be with the Steelers. Definitely fits their personality and style of play.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing, and I think you're right. I think he just fell on those traps, and it's so easy to do. Hey, I guarantee you, if I hit the lottery tomorrow and I suddenly came into millions of dollars, I would not handle it well. I'd probably buy 3 or 4 Dunkin' Donuts franchises and just like eat all the inventory or something like that. So yeah, I can understand. Yeah. So it's understandable how an athlete can just get in those traps and get in those that bad situation. So it would be great. I mean, this is great that this Alliance Football League is happening to give people like this another chance, because otherwise he would never have another chance. So I'd love to see him back in the NFL, and if the Steelers could take a chance on him, that would be great.
Another story with the Steelers is Antonio Brown. He's been going straight on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and just expressing he wants to get traded somewhere else. How are you taking that as a fan?
I started my podcast in July of last year, and the majority of it was spent talking about the Le'Veon Bell situation and how crazy it was. Compared to the Le'Veon Bell situation, the Antonio Brown situation is 100 times worse, or more dramatic, I should say. It's just been such a crazy story, and we just keep learning more and more. And the way he acts on social media, I think the whole thing he's been doing, or was doing, I should say, was all in an effort to get released. I think he thought that the Steelers would be so disgusted with him that they would just release him and he could go anywhere he wants and then he could dictate his terms. And they had a meeting with the Steelers management and him down at his house in Miami. And I think in that meeting, what the owner and the management told him was, "Listen, I don't care what you do, we are not releasing you." Could you imagine Antonio Brown on the Patriots or the Ravens or the Bengals or the Browns or something like that? That would be a worse nightmare for the Steelers. So they told him, whatever you're doing on social media, it's not helping you. It's not helping anybody, and you're not going to get released. And another thing is you're not going to be able to dictate where you want to go, because that was another thing is, well, maybe the agent will orchestrate a trade or something like that. It's like, no. It's like, you have no authority to do that. Only the Steelers can orchestrate a trade. So it's such a shame that it's come to this, because he and Ben Roethlisberger are so good together, but it's just a shame that the relationship deteriorated so bad. But that's where we are, and now the Steelers are looking to trade him.
It's been amazing just to watch just how things have just dropped off. You think, with the Le'Veon Bell situation, that it can't get any worse. Now, insert Antonio Brown, who essentially turns into T.O./Dennis Rodman of this era, and is essentially a sideshow. And it's just a nonstop, again, I say, reality TV show, and bringing just negativity around to an organization that is already, struggling with that from Le'Veon Bell. So I got to ask, I'm sure there's division amongst the fan base and whatnot. Who do they blame for this?
The universal blame is Mike Tomlin. That's among everybody, and unfortunately he has to get most of the blame, which I think is a bit unfair. But it's funny how locally in Pittsburgh people blame either Tomlin, the owner, or the majority of it is Antonio Brown. But nationally, for some reason, the national TV shows and stuff, they blame Ben Roethlisberger. Because they say how Ben Roethlisberger is and how he criticizes. There was a couple times where on his radio show he criticized Brown, he criticized some players or something like that. So it's really interesting that the national people have one perspective, local people have another perspective. But yeah, this has to fall on Mike Tomlin, unfortunately. And I think all he did was give a star preferential treatment, which happens in every team from college, professional, whatever. The best players get a little bit. Not that they could get away with murder, but be a few minutes late to a meeting, things like that. And it's up. So he gave an inch, and Antonio Brown took that and just ran with it. And, basically thought that he could do anything he wanted. And the problem is, well, then people say, well, why didn't they bring that under control? Why didn't they rein him in? Because that's not his personality. Antonio Brown has, I guess you could say, a fragile ego. And if they were to crack down on him and say, you're being punished for doing this or that or whatever, he would lash out. He would do exactly what he just did. He would lash out, demand a trade, want to leave, quit, whatever. So I think they knew that was going to happen. So that's why they were lenient on him. But it came back to bite them big time, and now we're in the situation we're in.
Now, hopping on to what you say about Mike Tomlin, I thought that maybe it's time for him to go. Do you feel that same thing? That whole feeling that maybe you should have like a new coach, and because it seems like Tomlin handling this whole situation with the Steelers has not been the best.
There are a lot of people saying that he needs to go, either because of this situation, of how he handled it, or basically you have one of the best quarterbacks, one of the best running backs, and one of the best wide receivers in history. You have that trio. And what have they won lately? They've gone to the playoffs, but then in the playoffs they've failed. So you have all that talent on this team and have nothing to show for it. That looks terribly on Mike Tomlin. Now, if you say, well, then you should get rid of him. The guy's never had a losing record. How can you get rid of somebody that's never had a losing record in, I believe, 11 or 12 years or something like that? And I talk to people from other teams, and they say, oh, you want to get rid of Tomlin? We'll take him in a second. So but the thing is, his contract is up at the end of this year, and typically what the Steelers do is when there is a year left on the contract, they will extend the contract. So that hasn't happened yet. It'll probably happen later this summer. But what if the Steelers ownership says, "Hey, you got a mess here, and you really screwed this up. So you better show us something, or you're not getting that contract extension."
So I like Tomlin. I've liked him since he became the Steelers coach at a very young age, and I can see where some people are placing a lot of the blame on him. I mean, he doesn't have one, but two very bad situations that's caused a lot of negativity to that team. And yes, you're right. The talent level on the Steelers team is enough so that they will be competing for an AFC title and perhaps a Super Bowl. But then on the other hand, I got all these distractions, which I guarantee you are causing division in the locker room. It's hard to win with those distractions floating around and division being created because of it. And even if a team is just loaded with talent, it's just hard to move past that.
There have been so many distractions the past 2 or 3 years, and I think you have to give Tomlin a little bit of credit for keeping the team together after all those distractions. I remember not this year, the 2017 season, when that whole national anthem controversy happened. That divided the team very badly, and he was able to bring them in. He was able to, I think what he said was, listen, guys, I know we have differences, I know we have problems, I know there's drama here, but let's all just work together and let's make our goal to win. And it worked. They went 13-3 that year, and he was able to keep it together. So he should get credit for some of that. But at the same time, I think he also partially created some of that, or allowed an environment for that drama to happen. So, he should get some blame too.
Now back to the Antonio Brown situation. Are you okay, having him leave, but having Juju Schuster? Do you have confidence in Juju?
Here's the thing. Juju had such a good year last year and a good rookie year because all of the coverage was on Antonio Brown. All of the attention was on Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown was getting double covered, and so, Juju not getting as much coverage and being the second option, it was a lot easier for him to get that. So there's that big factor. I think the Steelers need to get someone else. They need to get another wide receiver, either through free agency. The draft, I think, is a bad idea, well, at least not short term. You can't rely on a rookie wide receiver. They need somebody. Juju's good, but he's not particularly fast. They need somebody that's fast that will stretch the field to at least take some of the pressure off of Juju and James Washington or whoever the third and fourth receivers are going to be.
That's what I was going to ask. You need that good number two. Do you feel confident that last year's pick, James Washington, can be that guy to step up, or do they look to free agency? Possibly Beckham. You want to empty out the money for him. And I don't know if I completely disagree with the draft. You got names like A.J. Brown and D.K. Metcalf and N'Keal Harry. So, that could bring some youth to the team and some really good talent.
Maybe, and maybe they will do that. Maybe they'll go that way in the first round. But the problem is, James Washington had an okay season, but he also struggled a lot, and I think that's what you see with even the very best wide receivers. Their first year, they don't do as well, and the Steelers' window is very small right now. Ben Roethlisberger is, I think 36 or 37 or something like that. He's not going to be around much longer. He has probably 1 or 2 or 3 more years. So their window is now. So I don't know if they could, maybe if they get a really good wide receiver in the first round, but as a stopgap, get maybe somebody like a Golden Tate or something like that to at least initially be in there in the lineup. That would probably be ideal.
Yeah, there's actually a few free agents, wide receivers available. There's Golden Tate, there's John Brown from the Ravens, Adam Humphries from the Buccaneers, Cole Beasley, and Kevin White, and also Tyrell Williams. So there's a few options out there.
Yeah, we'll see what they do. The problem is, now there's that huge need of wide receiver, but the Steelers also have other huge needs, and that's at inside linebacker and cornerback. And really, the defense is the reason why that they failed to make the playoffs last year, and that they have not done as well in the playoffs 2 years ago. So it's basically ever since Ryan Shazier got hurt, this defense has not been the same, and they desperately need to plug those holes. And so they have a little bit of money this year. They actually have a little bit of space. So we'll see what they do with that.
Absolutely. And kind of go back, you're talking about the small window of opportunity that they have left. It's been questionable a few times on Ben Roethlisberger possibly retiring. Yeah. So I got to ask the question, how much longer is he going to be there? What are people thinking? How are people feeling? And do you feel like the Steelers have adequately addressed the heir apparent issue?
Well, a couple years ago, he hinted at retirement, and people were freaking out. I don't think that was hey, I'm thinking about retiring. I think that was hey, I'm so sick and tired of working with Todd Haley, the offensive coordinator, that I might just quit. I think that was the message that he wanted to send there, because after that, they let Todd Haley go after last year. There's no more talk of him, retiring. But he's not young. How much longer is he going to last? Now, the one thing that's benefiting him is these new rules in the NFL, where if you so much as breathe on a quarterback, you get a penalty. If nobody's going to touch you, then he could play till he's 45 in theory. So that could, in theory, extend his career. He led the league in interceptions last year. He also led the league in passing yards. So the balance of the offense was extremely pass heavy, and they did not run as much. And they need to address that. But so he could be there. I think he has at least another 2, maybe 3 years in him, but I can't see him going past 40. It's at some point Father Time catches up with him.
Right.
He can't pull a Brady.
Especially when you're
Exactly. He doesn't have any of those TB12 things.
There's also yeah. Go ahead, Justin.
I was just going to say, especially when you're a quarterback like Roethlisberger, who's a very physical quarterback. Yeah. Who doesn't shy away from hits and creates a lot of himself. Right.
Ben is all about dancing around, trying to get buy a little extra time, and sometimes he will take that hit, and that does not that does not prolong a career.
Not at all. So I guess my question is now that the quote problem children are going to be exiting, where do the Steelers go from here? How do they change the culture? How do they get back to being Steelers again?
That's a great question, and that is a question that people are asking: is this a culture of just terrible behavior and a terrible situation, or was it just a few bad apples? Was it just Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and maybe one or two other people? I think that's the case. I think that was just a case of the Antonio Brown situation got so out of hand, and this whole Le'Veon Bell situation also weighed heavily on them. They counted on him being there, and he wasn't there, and every single week, all of those players had to answer the question, have you talked to Le'Veon Bell? What's going on with Le'Veon Bell? Have you talked? That had to weigh on them too. So they're done with all that. They're done with the Le'Veon Bell situation. They're going to be done with the Antonio Brown situation. So, and like I said, earlier in this, nobody has looked worse than Mike Tomlin in this. So he has a reputation to repair. So I think what's going to happen is I think everybody is going to think of this as a new beginning, turn over a new leaf, whatever. And I think there will be a lot more harmony and a lot less drama. People are saying, well, maybe what if Juju turns into that? It's like maybe he will, maybe he won't. I doubt it. He seems like a fun-loving kid. So we'll see, but I think there's no more bad apples, so I think they'll be just fine.
Where do you see?
I couldn't agree more.
Where do you see Antonio Brown going to? Do you think? I mean, I've been hearing he'll be a good fit for the Patriots for some reason, but what team he'll be a good fit at?
I think they would be smart to trade him to an NFC team. The 49ers seem like a pretty good fit. Arizona might be a good fit. I think the perfect fit would be Oakland. Oakland has, 3 or 4 first-round draft picks. They have plenty of cap space. That's the debate and right now is what kind of return are they going to get when they trade Antonio Brown? And did his antics and his attitude drive teams away, and maybe it did. I could see Oakland, maybe the Jets. The Jets have a lot of space. I mean, one thing you have to consider is the Giants have Saquon Barkley and Odell Beckham. The Jets have nobody like that. So what if the Jets said, well, why don't we get our star running back and our star wide receivers? Or maybe they'll end up with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. They could be reunited. Yay!
But my question is, do the Raiders and really any organization, especially one that is just trying to change the culture of toxicity, really want to bring that in there? Especially in Oakland, man, there's just so much just poison that was there that John Gruden is having to wade through and just kick out. I mean, it's going to be a project that he's going to have to take on for years to come. So does he really want to invite someone like Bell or like Brown into the organization?
That's a great question. Why would you want that? Here's how I view it. Yes, you look at the crazy, but you also look at that he is one of the best wide receivers in the league. It's kind of like when you're at a bar and there's a really pretty girl, but she's crazy, and you think, man, I'd love to be with her, and I know it would be a disaster, but maybe it would work out somehow. I think every team looks at that situation and says, oh, we have a great organization here. That's not going to happen here. He'll be just fine with us. We'll fix him. So I think there's a lot of that, too. One thing you have to consider is there's a lot of reputations that have been tarnished with this. Antonio Brown is getting the reputation as, like you said, like a Terrell Owens, like a diva wide receiver. He's looking really bad after this. So he's going to want to show that he is a model citizen and a good wide receiver and all that stuff. The Steelers also, I think they're going to be super motivated to show that they could still be a good team, because so many people right now are saying, "Oh, the Steelers are crumbling. The window's closed. They're going to be lousy. They're no good anymore." So they're going to be super motivated to show that they're still good. So I think at first, at least initially, Antonio Brown is going to be a good citizen and do say all the right things.
Well, Joe and Justin, we're almost out of time, but Joe, would you like to join us to do some game predictions?
Sure.
And Justin, of course, you could predict. Let's go for college basketball. The Notre Dame Irish versus FSU.
I am a big fan of the University of Pittsburgh, and they are in bad shape. But I think one of their wins this year was against FSU, so I don't care if it's the three of us. I think we could beat FSU at this point. So I'm going Notre Dame.
Justin?
Well, didn't FSU just get a upset this past weekend over North Carolina? Is that right?
I don't know. Good chance they did.
I believe they did, but I believe the luck's going to run out. And, I've always loved the Irish, so I can't cheer against them, so I'm going to go with Notre Dame.
Kansas State University versus Kansas University. Joey.
Battle of the Big 12. Wow.
Yeah. I will always go Kansas. They always have a great program, so I'll take Kansas.
Justin?
I'll take Kansas. They always do well during the regular season. It's the postseason where I'm not going to touch them because usually when I'm filling out a brackets when they burn me the most. So I'm going to stay away from them during that time. But regular season, they got it tonight.
Let's go NBA. Lakers at the Memphis Grizzlies.
Oh, LeBron, what's going on with you? I'll take the Lakers.
Man, this is another reality TV show here that we can all tune in and get some entertainment out of. LeBron came out of the All-Star break with this make the playoffs mentality, and we're going to do everything we can, and our attitudes are going to change. And that game against the Rockets, it looks like they did, but then they turned around and lost to the Pelicans. So it's just been kind of back and forth. However, I still think they have a lot better talent than the Grizzlies, so I'm going to go with the Lakers.
The Lakers come back in revenge and vengeance. And random question of the week: what is the most lovable pet? Dog, cat, horse, or rabbit?
I have a story about a pet rabbit, but it's pretty crazy. Let's just say I had a pet rabbit, and it became dinner. But anyway, that's a story for another day.
A better way to.
Yeah, I know.
The random question.
End on that note.
I know, right?
I'm a dog lover. I have a dog that's basically, dogs are like little humans. I've never really had a cat, so I can't really speak on that. But I've always had a dog, so I'm a big dog lover.
I gotta piggyback off of that. You can't beat a dog, man. They're loyal. They are your ride or die to the end. And they're always going to love you, whereas a cat is basically, if they're in the mood, they'll love you. Where a dog is going to protect you tooth and nail no matter what's coming against you. So I got to go with dog.
Dog it is, man's best friend. Joey, how can people reach you online for any questions about the Steelers or any other sport?
I basically am on Twitter 24/7. I'm Joey Bag of Donuts. Instead of an F, there's a V. I also have my own podcast called The Donut Bag. It's available wherever the heck podcasts are, all 10,000 places. So yeah, but mostly if you want to talk, I'm always available to talk Steelers or whatever on Twitter.
And Justin, how about yourself?
Oh yeah. You can reach me, email 121training, that's 12, the number, and 1 spelled out, training @gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram at 121training, as well as Twitter, but I also manage our Sportscast Twitter account as well. So I got quite a few number of places. If you look hard enough, you can find me.
Yes, you can find us at the Sportscast 1, or if you go to thesportscast.net. and we'll talk almost every sport from boxing, football, Steelers, Premier League. We got it all. And read our latest article about college football recruitment, blue chips, and how Tyler really explains it all. Anyways, any closing words from you guys?
Well, I'm a big football fan, and there's no off season anymore. There's no off time. In NFL, they're about to do the combine, and then after that, there's free agency, then the draft. So there's always fun stuff going on. So enjoy it.
Absolutely. Football season, yeah, it is a year-round sport now. You just have so much going on. When it officially is over for college football, that's when recruiting, that's a whole nother season comes about. It's on TV, it's on radio, social media, what have you. So, we're always getting our fill. And then we got spring ball. We got the NFL Combine. Now we got the Alliance of American Football, which a lot of people are really embracing because it's given everybody a breath of fresh air away from the drama, away from the scrutiny, away from the nonsense that we're seeing in a majority of pro sports, not just the NFL. So, there's always going to be something on, and it's great. Love football, and I love being on the podcast today.
Well, Joe and Justin, I really appreciate you guys coming onto the Sportscast. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks for having me on. This was awesome.
Definitely.